If you were trapped in an empty room with 11 other shady strangers and forced to compete in a deadly challenge where only one of you could leave alive, what would you do? There's no way out except to be the last one standing, and any attempt to break the rules is going to result in a shocking death. We're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the low-budget death game in Breathing Room. These people are about to have the most traumatizing experience of their lives. Somewhere in a pitch-dark room, Tanya here wakes up in a state of complete confusion, with no idea what happened to her or where she's been taken. The woman nervously starts feeling her way around until suddenly she places her hand right onto the head of a decomposing body, and gets scared so badly that she blindly sprints straight into another brightly lit room. Crashing through the doorway, she sees that there are 11 other people, all dressed in numbered blue and orange jumpsuits, gathered around watching as if they were expecting her, and one of them immediately comes running over with a blanket for the woman to cover herself up. None of them have any clue how they all ended up here or even why, but from the looks of things, they can tell that it's probably not good. They haven't been given any direct instructions yet besides a sign congratulating them on being chosen for the experience of a lifetime, and a warning down in the fine print reminding them to always follow the rules. That's because if they do anything that they're not supposed to, then the booby-trapped collars around each of their necks will automatically activate, eliminating them from the game with a lethal blast of electricity. Contestant number 4, an older woman named Rothy, hustles Tanya over to a locker where she'll find her clothes. Taking the last bag, she heads to the single-person bathroom to get dressed in privacy, where she notices another rule stating that the players must keep their hands clean at all times. Besides her own blue jumpsuit labeled number 14 and a strange black and white photo of her from the outside world that must have been taken by her kidnapper, she finds a portable tape player with a pre-recorded message meant only for her. The tape explains that Tanya here is the final and most important piece of the puzzle, and now that she's awake, the game can officially begin. Although there's still no sign of what this game here even involves, it warns her not to trust the other contestants, and says that only those without collars can break the rules. As she's putting on her jumpsuit, Tanya discovers one last surprise. One half of a small key that must unlock something important. Leaning over to the sink, she nervously washes her hands and splashes water over her face before going back out to join the others. But the truth is that everyone in this room is hiding a secret, even Tanya herself. Okay, somebody seriously needs to call up Jigsaw and tell him that there's some clown out there disgracing his hard work with a bunch of props that look like they were bought from Party City. Don't you dare do my boy John Kramer like that. Anyway, Tanya and the others here need to come up with a way to get the hell out of this place before whatever happens next. The first thing would be to try and remain as calm as possible and start by assessing the room itself, looking around for any potential exits, weak points, or tools that might help us in our escape. Next, I'd try to get to know some of the other members of the group as best as I could. If Tanya here is the last one, then that logically means that everyone else has been there longer, so I'd want to get a feel for what they've been experiencing so far, and see if what I learned inspired any new ideas. They need to discuss how they all ended up there, and anything that they might remember about what happened to them. The language on the signs and the photo of Tanya indicate that they were all chosen for a reason, so if they can figure out what that reason is, then that might give them the key to freeing themselves. Once the introductions are out of the way, everyone should brainstorm and work together as a team to systematically search the room for any hidden clues, messages, or puzzles. Tanya shouldn't show the others the tape yet because it outright says that not everyone can be trusted, and that it will only create chaos, which isn't what any of them need right now. But I would try to replay the jumbled section of the recording in reverse or slowed down to see if it was hiding another clue. Another thing that she can do is show them her key and ask around to see if anyone has the other half or if they got any other items with their jumpsuit, since these could be the first pieces to figuring out the bigger puzzle. Although these look bad right now, they should try and stay positive and work as a group since they're all in this together, or at least that's what I'd want everyone else to think. Thanks to the tape, Tanya knows that not everyone is really who they seem, which means that she also needs to figure out who she can or can't trust. You don't want to show that you're suspicious, since this could give away to the plants that you're already onto them. Instead, she needs to start watching everyone else very carefully and paying close attention to things like their usual behavior, body language, and how they interact with other people in the room. I'd strike up conversations with everyone and look for suspicious reactions, such as evasive answers or inconsistencies in their backstories. And use the lawyer technique of intentionally misremembering small details to see if someone corrected me or if I could catch them in a lie. This should help you establish normal baseline behaviors and watch out for any changes, like, for example, if 3 here goes from freaking out to suddenly calm, then you'll know that something's up. For now, Tanya can put her trust in the people who seem like team players, like Lee and Rothy, and watch out for troublemakers like 6 and 9 who actively go against the group. The colored jumpsuits make it seem like they've already been sorted into teams, but I wouldn't be too sure about that. Instead, I'd focus on building alliances with people who I trust, since not only will this hopefully protect me from shady characters, but it would also mean that I had some useful meat shields on deck just in case things got a little too crazy down the line. For now, the most important things are to follow the rules, try to stay off the radar while coming up with an escape plan, and learn as much about other people as you can, while everyone else waits to see what's coming up next. As Tanya enters back into the main room, she finds the rest of the group already in the middle of a heated argument about what they should all do next. The main instigator of the group, who only goes by the number 6, is busy trying to peer pressure this agitated contestant number 2 into breaking one of the rules in an attempt to escape. Some of the others try to talk to him out of it, but the man decides that it's probably time for somebody to actually take some action, and approaching a mysterious door on the other side of the room, he nervously looks down at a piece of black tape on the floor, clearly stating that players may not cross the line. After taking a minute to think it over, the man steps over the line and opens the door, but that was his biggest mistake. Just then, the man starts grabbing at his neck in pain, but it turns out that he's just playing a prank. So far, it looks like nothing's going to happen to him, and he laughs at the others for even believing any of this in the first place. But just as another contestant comes to cross the line too, he's suddenly blasted with a jolt of electricity and collapses to the floor dead, making one contestant down with 11 more to go. Everyone else is stuck in various levels of shock. This middle-aged woman, number 3, goes into a complete panic and starts banging on the walls, begging for the host to let them out. 6 here decides to crack a joke about what happened at the worst possible time, causing the group's de facto leader, Lee, to step in and punch him hard in the gut. As for Tanya, she's still trying to get someone to explain why this is all even happening, but as of right now, they say that she knows just as much as everybody else, and as 6 puts it, obey the rules or face the consequences. Sometime later, Tanya is approached by Lee and his friend Harry, who want to ask her some basic questions about her personal background. She says that she's originally from Starkville, Mississippi, but when this creepy guy Harry points out that she doesn't have an accent, she explains it away by claiming that her family moved around a lot when she was a kid. Getting closer, Harry here starts asking her all of these oddly specific questions like what's her favorite food and when's her birthday, but the other 2 quickly shoo him away, saying that he takes some time getting used to. On the wall behind them, Tanya notices a strange padlocked box with a label simply reading pieces and asks them what's inside, but they quickly brush over it, saying that there's nothing in there that she needs to worry about. Instead, they want to know if Tanya found anything else in the bag with her suit, but remembering the advice from the tape player, she decides to lie low and says that there was nothing but the picture. Things are quiet for a while as everyone sits around thinking about what they should do next. Sitting alone, Lee pulls what looks like a small container of superglue out of his pocket and looks over a note telling him to piece the pieces. Another rule on the wall warns the players not to mess with their collars, otherwise, well, they've all seen what's going to happen there. After a while, Tanya here decides to introduce herself to the tough girl of the group, number 9, but she immediately makes it clear that she isn't looking for any friends. She tries asking the woman where she got the lighter that she's playing with, but 9 snaps back at her that she's not buying into Tanya's whole innocent and confused routine. Sensing a confrontation brewing, Rothy steps in between the girls and tries to get the two of them to chill out, but 9 insists that nobody in here is on the same team, saying that the sooner they figure that out, the better off that they'll all be. Okay, it might not seem like much has happened so far, but during these interactions with the others, we actually learned some important lessons about how the game works and who Tanya can trust. Based on their actions, Lee, Henry, and Rothy all seem like the most trustworthy team members in the group. Now, we don't want to get too comfortable with anyone just yet, but at least they're a good place to start. As for the others, it seems like the people who you definitely want to avoid are 6 and 9. 9 is only out for herself, but 6 is even worse because he'll directly put you into harm's way if it gives him a better chance to escape, and that's supposed to be my job. Harry here might be the most interesting one of all. There's no denying that something about this guy's vibe is incredibly sus. But he's clearly good at reading people since he picked up on Tanya's lack of accent and seems to be gathering information about everyone else for some unknown reason. I'm still not sure if we can trust him, but he could be in the process of piecing together some stuff that might be important later on, so I'd maintain a truce with him for now until we can see what he's really all about. That covers the other players for now, but for everyone in the room, including Tanya herself, the real problems are those collars around their necks. They are the only factors preventing them from being able to act freely and try out any ideas that they can. And remember, the tape said that only players without collars can break the rules. This wouldn't have been included if it wasn't important to the game, so it only makes sense that there must be some way to get them off. The problem with trying anything is that the host will zap you if they see you messing with them. But there's only one place in the test chamber that might not be covered by their cameras: the bathroom. I'd start by thoroughly searching the bathroom for any hidden cameras, and then once I was sure that they couldn't see me, start trying to remove or weaken the collar any way that I could. Like for example, using non-conductive materials to create a barrier between their neck and the collar, like rubber from the soles of their shoes or extra cloth from their jumpsuits. Could produce an insulating effect that weakens the deadly electric shocks. It's also possible that the collar runs off of a battery pack, and finding a way to remove that would leave it with no power source. To remove the collar completely, they could try picking the lock using thin, sturdy material like a paperclip or a hairpin if anyone has one, thin metal from the frame of Harry's glasses, or from any of the furniture around the room, like a spring from inside of the mattress. They could also use this same approach to create a sort of shim, and then use it to force the bolt open without directly interacting with the locking mechanism itself. Just when everyone else is starting to wonder what's next, a voice comes over the intercom and announces that the game will begin in just under an hour. As the tensions in the room immediately skyrocket once again, Henry tries to calm everyone down by pointing out that maybe this will be a fun game. But the others only stare at him like he's crazy, knowing that what they're in for is going to be exactly the opposite of a good time. In the bathroom, 9 is doing her best to keep it together, but when she reaches out for a paper towel, another hint falls out with it. This one explaining that player 5, Harry, does not tell the truth. Outside in the main room, the voice comes back over the intercom, announcing that the game will be starting in 5 minutes. All of a sudden, all of the lights in the room mysteriously shut off, and a video of a man who can only be described as the final boss of the Reddit comments section appears on one of the walls above them, welcoming everyone to the game. The host explains that they've all been chosen for a reason, and now it's up to them to make a choice. In the end, only one of them can win the game and leave the room alive, but how the winner is decided and who the players can trust is up to them. After repeating the phrase, "piece the pieces together," and wishing them all luck, the man signs off for now, leaving Tanya and the other contestants to decide what they're going to do next. Although it's obvious that the host is completely insane with his way of talking in riddles, the contestants all realize that none of them are going anywhere anytime soon, so they decide to go around the room sharing all of their personal backstories to see if they can figure out any sort of larger connection that might explain why they've all been taken here. Things start out normal enough, but when it gets to Harry's turn, he starts going off on a long-winded rant about his tech support job, boring everyone half to death until Lee finally tells him that they've heard enough. Rafi gives everyone her usual old lady lore, and then it's finally time to hear from Six himself, who eagerly sits down in the hot seat, only to then immediately start a confrontation with Lee, turning the questions around instead and asking who died and made him king of Turd Island in the first place. All of a sudden, the lights in the room shut off for a second time, and the host tells them that curfew has begun. While everyone waits nervously to see what's going to happen, there's a loud crash from somewhere in the room, and an unseen attacker uses the cover of darkness to go after their first victim, contestant number 9. The lights come back on just as suddenly as they went out, and 11 immediately runs to the bathroom feeling like she's going to be sick. 13 discovers a new hint placed on the table in the center of the room, this one simply reading patience, and Lee discovers that the padlock on the box full of weapons has been opened, quietly shutting it again without saying a word about it to anyone else. Just then, they hear a blood-curdling scream from the bathroom as 11 finds 9 with her neck broken lying face down in the toilet, making 2 contestants down with 10 more to go. As soon as he sees this, Six goes rushing over to the weapons box and unlocks it with a key that he's secretly had on him the whole time, pulling out the old pistola and daring anyone to try and stop him. Unfazed, Henry asks him if it even has any bullets, which is when Six realizes that the magazine is completely empty. Taking 9's body, they decide to put her in the room where Tanya originally woke up, which is where they've been storing the bodies of anyone who's been eliminated so far.
Okay. Woo! It looks like just officially got real. Gathering everyone to give their backstories was a solid idea because, like we said before, not only does it give you a chance to look for connections, but it also lets you figure out who you can trust. Although we didn't get much useful information about any connections between them, they seem like a mostly random group, with not a lot that makes them similar in any way, indicating that this is more of an experiment than some kind of carefully thought out plot for revenge. Still, you can learn a lot about a person by their body language and the details of their story. Henry, 13, Rafi, and even the creepy guy Charlie all seem trustworthy. They maintained an open and honest body posture, kept their answers short and to the point, and held eye contact with the group the entire time. Unlike 9 and 6, who were either closed off and refused to answer or even openly confrontational. Clearly now we don't have to worry about 9 anymore, but I'd be keeping an eye on 6 here as we go forward. Someone else who I'm definitely keeping an eye on is Harry here, and that's because of the overly detailed story that he jumped right into after saying almost nothing about his personal information. Excessive details are considered a sure sign that someone is making up their story, making it seem like he's trying to distract us from knowing too much about his personal life. And this backs up the note that 9 found saying that he doesn't tell the truth. The bigger problem now is that there's a killer out there, and they have no idea if it's one of them or someone else from outside of the group. It's only a matter of time before they strike again, so Tonya and the others need to get prepared for when they come back. The most obvious thing to do is arm themselves with weapons. These could be anything from the pieces box or just stuff lying around the room like parts of the chairs or even the metal sliding from the locker that they could use as a makeshift shield. Whenever the lights are about to go out, everyone should get into a big circle and hold hands. That way, if anyone lets go, then they can yell that person's name and let everyone else know that they're the killer. And if not, then they could know that the killer is coming from outside. Alternatively, Tanya could try locking herself in the bathroom and letting the others all take each other out, so that she ends up winning by default. She'd have access to drinking water, so she could survive in there for as long as several weeks. And if anyone tries to come in, just blast them with the top of the toilet tank. The attack also brought up a few small important details. For one, why would they need someone to come in and physically attack if they could just use their collars to eliminate players? Maybe it's just a scare tactic, but it makes me think that the collars might really be fake after all. And maybe contestant number 2 was just another plant from the host. Also, while everyone was doing their introductions, you could clearly see that there was a giant mirror or window on the far back wall. My gut is telling me that it could be a one-way mirror, and if so, then they could just smash it with a chair and escape. It could be risky, but I haven't seen a rule yet that says you can't do that, so it might be worth a try.
For now, everyone goes back to doing their own thing and just biding their time while they wait to see what's going to happen next. Harry here finds another message hidden inside of the locker, saying that 14 is the key, and looks over at the woman with suspicion as she's blankly staring off into the distance. In the bathroom, Henry takes out the item that he was given with his jumpsuit, a single bullet for Six's weapon. Searching for more secrets, he climbs up onto the toilet and tries checking behind the vent on the bathroom ceiling, but fails to turn up anything of use. Meanwhile, back in the main room, Harry strikes up some more unwelcome small talk with Tanya and starts asking her about her birthday again. But when she asks him why he wants to know, the guy tries to play it off like it's not important. Annoyed, Tanya decides that she's just going to walk away, but Harry comes up running behind her and says that he's been gathering information about everyone and jotting it down looking for any similarities. This makes Tanya wonder how long Harry has been stuck in here, and he replies that he isn't even sure. But what he can tell is that Charlie in the corner over there has been here longer than anyone else. Despite Henry trying to reassure her that they're going to be alright, 11 here is on the verge of having a mental breakdown, and she's terrified that it won't be long before something bad happens again. Sitting alone, Harry pulls another hint out of his jumpsuit with just one word: jumble.
Okay, this could be an important clue because seeing the word jumble immediately makes me think of an anagram. Basically, an anagram is a word or phrase formed by rearranging the letters of another word or phrase. For example, how you can rearrange the letters of the word listen to spell silent. If there's a secret message hidden in the notes, then that could provide them with a valuable clue or even a ticket to escape. So they should gather up all the notes that everyone's found so far and see what they can learn from them. Without access to a computer, they're going to have to brute force their way to an answer, but with all 10 of them working on it, they can start by breaking down the word into smaller parts or syllables to look for anything familiar, and rearranging the letters in as many different ways as possible. I'd focus on words or phrases that might make sense given the context of where they are, like anything that has to do with keys, doors, escaping, that kind of stuff. It's going to be a long process, but it's also the best lead that they've had so far, so that's where I'd start now while we wait to see what other tricks the host has up his sleeve.
Later on, while the contestants are all waiting for whatever happens next, Lee and Six decide to take a look through everything that's inside of the pieces box and see if it gives them any ideas. They have a hammer, a rope, a little chisel sort of thing, and of course the pistol with no bullets, which Six here finds a little bit suspicious. Besides that, they also have an unmarked bottle of mystery liquid that seems like some kind of really strong alcohol from the way that it smells. 3 here is barely holding it together, and she blows up on Henry for not being freaked out enough, even though he's just trying to stay calm and keep the peace. Tanya also seems like she's been struggling, and so Grandma over here comes to see how she's been holding up. But just then, the host announces that it's lights out again, and everyone in the room starts to panic. In the darkness, a few people swear that they can see something moving around, and Rothy decides to get up and start humming a song, giving herself away to the killer as a distraction. After a moment, they hear the old woman gasp. And sure enough, when the lights come back on, there's Rothy lying on the ground with one of the weapons stuck in her eye socket, making 3 contestants down with 9 more to go. Just like always, there's also another note, and this time it strangely says, "Terror him." Henry gets to a point where he can't take it anymore and starts absolutely flipping out on the person behind the camera, calling them a coward and demanding that they come out and 1v1 him fair and square. Even though Lee tries to calm him down, saying that they need him to stay alive, he jumps up and swats the camera off the wall in a burst of rage. But luckily, nothing bad happens to him because of it, at least for now.
Okay, Henry here is going to regret this one later. You f***ed up. It might not seem like he's facing any major consequences yet, but the real mistake was missing a critical chance to do something that would benefit everyone else in the group. If he was going to risk his life to take out one camera, he should have just done everyone a favor and taken out all of the other cameras too. This might even force the researchers to stop the test, which could open up a chance for everyone to escape. At the very least, it would prevent the observers from seeing what the contestants were doing. allowing them to try out some new stuff without being caught and eliminated. Now let's turn our attention back to what we found over there in the pieces box. There doesn't seem to be anything in the rules that says that they can't use these tools to try and escape. And they also have the chairs, table, and filing cabinet that were already in the room, plus Nine's lighter and Lee's crazy glue to work with. The hammer and chisel could possibly be used to break through a weak point in the walls or floor. Also, the rope could allow someone to climb up the ceiling where they could try and find an escape route that way. The most obvious of all is that big garage door at the front of the room, and since there are no warning signs that I can see telling them not to mess with it, I'd say that it's fair play. They could try using the tools to somehow activate the mechanism to open it. Even without tools, if all 9 of them really lifted, then they could probably get it up just high enough for one person to crawl under and go for help. The host might eliminate you if he doesn't like these strategies, but they're all gonna die anyway if they stay, so the way that I see it, it literally couldn't hurt to try.
After another failed attempt to buddy up with the others, Harry goes back to the table and finally realizes that the message "terror him" is meant to be an anagram. At the same time, Lee notices a hole in a rubber grip at the bottom of the hammer, and finds a tiny bottle of strange green liquid hidden inside. It doesn't take long before Harry unscrambles the letters, revealing that the message was really meant to say "the mirror," and Lee decides to take Tanya and 13 to go check it out. Pulling the mirror down from the wall, the 3 of them then smash it open and find a black box labeled cereal hidden inside. Opening the box, Lee is about to stick his hand in there when Tanya snatches it away and pours it out into the sink instead. And hidden within the Rice Krispies they find is, you guessed it, another hint, and also the other half of Tanya's key. But this time the note is a little extra spicy. It says that 3 of the contestants are into some really bad crimes, like the worst kind of crimes that you can think of, and if they can figure out which one of them is the killer, then they'll know the reason behind the game. Putting the note into his pocket, Lee steps back out into the main room and calls for everyone to gather around. He offers them all the chance to speak up and admit to anything that they've been hiding before he spills the beans. But besides Harry confessing that he's actually unemployed and living with his mom, no one else has anything to say. That's when he tells them all what they found on the note, and 6 here immediately starts pointing out his suspects. But just when 13 is about to kick his ass for saying that he might be one of them, they get another message from the host. This time the host shows Henry that they have his granddaughter, and as his punishment for breaking the rules, he says that he must eliminate 1 player from the game within the next 60 seconds or else the girl will face the consequences. To spice things up, he also reveals that 3 is actually one of the criminals, although she's not the killer, before leaving Henry to make his choice and starting the timer. Before anyone can stop him, Henry grabs the weapon and loads his 1 bullet, holding it at 3 as the timer quickly starts to run out. With less than 5 seconds left, it looks like Henry here is really going to do it, but at the very last moment, he decides to take himself out of the competition instead, making 4 contestants down with 8 more to go.
Okay, this might be the most important information so far. We now know that there are 3 really bad criminals mixed in with the group. If we believe the host, then we already know that the contestant number 3 is one of them, but she's not the killer. And according to the hint, finding the killer is the only way for them to learn the real reason behind the game, which could be their ticket out of here. This leaves us with 7 other possible suspects, but how do we figure out which one of them is the killer in disguise? The only reliable strategy for this goes back to sitting everyone down for questioning and judging their reactions and responses. We would need to observe their behavior and body language for any telltale signs of dishonesty, such as sweating, avoiding eye contact, and defensiveness or aggression, as well as keeping an eye out for any inconsistencies or discrepancies in their stories. We can also start to develop a psychological profile of each of the remaining survivors. For example, 6 lacks empathy, is manipulative, and quick to choose violence, which doesn't look good for him at all. As it stands, I'm pinning Harry and 6 as my 2 other suspects. We could just take them out right now. Worst case scenario, we're both wrong, and that just narrows the pull down even more. According to the rules, only 1 person gets to live anyway, so we'd have to get rid of them sooner or later. The only problem is that you may need the killer alive to learn what's really going on here, so it would be better to play it cool for now while keeping an eye on the others. And just wait to see how everything plays out.
Everyone scrambles to different areas of the room as they all try to process what just happened, with Tonya following Lee into the bathroom and deciding that it's finally time to tell him about the other stuff that came with her jumpsuit. Meanwhile, Six here is holding a kangaroo court back out in the main room, trying to figure out who the last two criminals could be. After listening to the tape and gluing both halves of the key together, they join back up with the others to find that 6 and 13 have already accused Charlie of being the killer and tied him up to a chair. Lee starts arguing with them to let him go, but before they can even settle the argument, 3 suddenly drops dead out of nowhere, with foam coming out of her mouth as if she might have been poisoned. That makes 5 contestants down, with 7 more to go. Seconds later, the entire room goes dark, and it's time for another round of who's gonna die next. Knowing that it's probably going to be him, the priest starts praying to himself while the others are all trying to stay as quiet as possible. And when the lights turn back on, they find him dead, with dozens of huge shards of broken glass piercing him all over his body. That makes 6 contestants down, with 6 more to go. To make matters even worse, they find another note on the table, and it says that the 2 criminals are really still alive. Things aren't looking good for the last few survivors, but that's when Lee here comes up with a decent plan. Using a pen and paper so that the host can't pick up on what they're saying, he explains to the others that Tonya's key might open one of their collars. And now that there's a section in the back of the room where the cameras aren't fully covering, they're going to sneak over there one person at a time until someone can get theirs off. One by one, each of them waits for the right moment before sneaking over to the corner to try the key. But even after all 6 of them have gone, it hasn't worked on any of their collars. Tonya mentions that it could have been meant for one of the people who's already been eliminated, but Lee says that if that's true, then there's nothing they can do about it now.
Okay, this was actually a really great idea, and it's too bad that it didn't work out, but there's still one other plan that they might want to try. Now that they know about the blind spot, they're free to tinker with the collars as long as they stay out of view. Plus, they still have that hammer and chisel. Putting all this together, there's a chance that they could go over to the blind spot, and then, as long as they're able to get just the right angle, they can use the tools against the table or just the floor of the building itself to break their collars. Then they'd be free to try things that are outside of the rules and might even be able to find a way to escape or get some help.
With nothing working out, 6 immediately goes back to his instigator crap and starts going off about how there's no point in trying these ideas because they're all gonna die anyway. 13 decides that he's had enough of 6's BS and is finally about to give him a much-needed beatdown. But as he lunges towards him, he suddenly collapses to the ground and dies from the poison, just like contestant number 3, making 7 contestants down with 5 more to go. Everyone separates to different sides of the room at this point, having no idea who's actually safe to trust until sometime later. 11 is alone washing her face in the bathroom. All of a sudden, someone uses the rope to strangle her from behind, killing the woman without anyone else even noticing. That makes 8 contestants down, with 4 more to go. Out in the main room, they get another message from the host who says that there's going to be a new twist on the game coming up very soon. When the lights come back on, this time instead of someone being dead, there's actually a new guy in a white jumpsuit begging them not to kill him. For now, Lee promises that they aren't going to do that, but they have a few questions to ask before they decide to untie him. The man answers that his name is Robert, and he says that he's a lawyer from Los Angeles with no idea how he was taken here, just like them. After deciding that they believe him, Lee unties the man and sits him down to fill him in on the next step of the plan. They want him to use the key on his collar, and to everyone's surprise, this time it actually works. Amazed, the rest of the group rushes over and sends Robert off down the mystery hallway to bring them help from the outside world. After a minute, he finally responds back that there's only a solid wall at the other end of the hallway, and circles back to the room holding a strange black box that looks like a present. Lee opens the box to find that it's actually full of ammunition, and although this would make it look like they're supposed to kill each other, he thinks things through and comes up with a better plan. They're going to empty out the gunpowder from all of the ammunition and use it to blow open the wall at the other end of the tunnel, which should hopefully allow Robert to get them some help.
Okay, I gotta give it to Lee. This dude keeps coming up with banger ideas, but they were so caught up in the moment that they failed to notice something strange. When Robert went into the hallway, there was no sign of contestant number 2's body. This means that there can't only be a wall at the end of the hallway, because there must be a way that the host is getting inside. They could try giving Robert a table leg and some extra cloth from one of the eliminated contestants, dousing it with alcohol, lighting it on fire, and then he'd have a torch to help him see around in the dark, and get a better look at if there's some kind of hidden door or something back there. Alternatively, they could say screw the hallway and use the gunpowder on that big garage door instead. It seems like it would be easier than getting through a solid wall, and then everyone else can watch Robert to make sure that he doesn't mess up something or deliberately try to sabotage the plan.
Using the hammer and chisel, Lee empties out all of the ammunition and collects the gunpowder into the container. Once he's done, they send Robert in to set things up, and he leaves a trail of alcohol on his way out to trigger the explosion from a safe distance back in the main room. The plan works like a charm, setting off a huge explosion at the end of the hallway, but when Robert gets to the other side, he sees something that completely changes everything. Sprinting back into the room, Robert tries to explain to the others what he saw, but before he can spit it out, the room suddenly goes black, and chaos breaks out as several of them start screaming. After another message from the host, congratulating them on making it to the final round, they find Robert dead in the corner with the bottle shoved down his mouth. Harry here is injured after having been accidentally shot by Six during the blackout, and when Lee goes to confront him, the two of them get into a brawl that ends with Six being killed by Tanya to protect her friend. That makes 10 down, with 3 more to go. Now that it's only the 3 of them left, Tanya goes into the bathroom with Harry to clean up his wound, while Lee starts cleaning up the bodies back outside. She's doing her best to patch him up, when all of a sudden, Harry here locks the bathroom door and starts coming after her. Fortunately, Tanya is able to shake him off and escape back outside, where she takes cover behind Lee just as Harry comes running out after her with a huge shard of broken glass. After a quick standoff, Lee fires his only shot, but not before Harry closes the distance and impales him in the stomach with the shard of glass. They're both mortally wounded, but instead of helping Lee, Tanya only grabs a hold of the glass and kills him even harder. That makes all 12 other contestants down, leaving Tanya as the only survivor. But it turns out that she was never really a contestant after all. Just then, the host enters the room and leads Tanya away, revealing that she was working with him all along. It turns out that this was all a part of some twisted behavior study, with countless games, just like this one, playing out in different rooms for the scientists to study. After getting herself cleaned up and fitted with a new fake collar, Tanya enters another room full of contestants to repeat the same experiment again, proving that if you're ever in a death game, then you should never trust the attractive blonde.
Another day, another death game. That was really fun. I had a good time with that episode. Let me know down in the comments below what you would have done differently. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the Guy. We'll see you in the next episode, and have a damn good day.